So, Lone Rider here, and I just wanted to throw something out there. This is about, it's not cycling related, it's not humor related, it's not archery related, it's just its own thing. I was reading in the newspaper the other day, a little blurb in the New York Post, that New Jersey, where I live, wants to ban bump stocks. Now, these are those designs with, it's an aftermarket stock you can put on a semi-automatic rifle that reciprocates and therefore allows the rifle to shoot a little faster than it otherwise would, but still in semi-automatic. Now, there's a couple problems I have with banning these, and one is that basically they were designed to be legal. The 1934 National Firearms Act, amongst other things, restricts fully automatic weapons, so they're very heavily restricted, virtually prohibited for private ownership, although you can get them, but it's extremely difficult. Even with a regular gun license, you can't actually buy an assault rifle. What you can buy, of course, are so-called assault weapons, because those are just any semi-automatic rifle that the government chooses to call an assault weapon. It's really a nonsense term. It doesn't really mean anything. Sorry, hate to tell you. I mean, it means nothing. It means whatever you want it to mean, which by definition means it has no meaning, because it's overly broad. I mean, if it can, a term that can be applied to both a rifle and a pistol. I mean, aside from something general like gun, yes, they're both types of firearm, but any kind of a specific category, it's not, whereas an actual assault rifle, okay, it's a rifle, or a carbine, as the case may be, but a long arm, not a handgun. So it's a long arm that has the capability of select fire. So it can fire more than one shot for each pull of the trigger in a certain setting. That's not what these so-called assault rifles do. Assault weapons, rather. See, even the terms are so confusing, and I think that's on purpose. They picked a term that sounded like an actual thing, precisely so that when they use the word assault weapon, you get connotations of a military M4, rather than a civilian AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. Right? The joke is on them because the semi-automatic AR-15 rifle doesn't fire in fully automatic. It can't. Or it would be regulated under the 1934 National Firearms Act, and you wouldn't be allowed to have it. So, what are the bump stocks? Well, the bump stocks were designed so that if you had a semi-automatic rifle that you wanted to fire a little faster, but still in semi-automatic, that's what it allows you to do. It uses the weapon's own recoil to go back and forth so that it helps you in pulling the trigger faster than you otherwise would. But the trigger is still pulled for each shot. It's still firing in semi-automatic. It's just firing faster than it otherwise would. And these were designed specifically to be legal because regular people can't get actual assault rifles, right? So what do? Well, you have a regular semi-automatic rifle. You want it to fire a little faster, but still be in compliance with the law. Well, you can't convert it to fully automatic or multi-round burst, but what can you do? You can get one of these bump stocks, and that's what they basically designed these so that people who wanted a little more performance out of their gun, but still obviously were law-abiding citizens and wanted to obey the law. Well, how can I get my gun to fire a little faster but still be legal, i.e. not convert it to a fully automatic weapon? Well, you use the bump stock. So this was, in other words, designed to comply with the law. And of course, the ATF, the organization charged with enforcing these kind of gun laws, looked at the bump stocks and said, well, yeah, it doesn't affect the firing mechanism at all. Of course it's legal. So the first problem with banning them is that they were designed specifically to comply with the law. So then the government's going to say, well, that's not good enough. We're going to change the law to make them illegal now. Well, they were designed to comply with existing law. I mean, so then you're going to change the law to make them illegal? I mean, basically, if somebody's gone to the trouble to come up with a product that is legal and that conforms to the law, and then you change the law after the fact to ban it, you, the government, basically just come across as a spoil sport, right? I mean, you're moving the goalpost. Well, okay, you can't have this. Okay, so people design something else. And you say, well, yeah, I know you made that to comply with the law, but that's not good enough. We're going to change the law and then ban that now. At some point, you have to say that this isn't reasonable. Right? Second thing that's not reasonable is not only was this designed specifically to comply with existing gun control laws, the device itself was, that we know of, only criminally misused in one instance. Now, granted, it was a very tragic instance with massive loss of life. But nevertheless, this is one instance of criminal misuse of the item. I can't think of a single other consumer product that was prohibited because it was criminally misused in one single instance. If there was, for example, a belief or even an actual fact that something has been heavily used by criminals, that there's a trend or whatever, sometimes there's a tendency to do that. For example, a lot of the gun control, they want to ban semi-automatic rifles. They reclassify them as so-called assault weapons, and then say, also some pistols as well, and then say, okay, we have to ban these now because they're favorites of criminals. Actually, crimes committed with rifles or long arms of any kind represent a very small subset of crimes using guns, which themselves represent a very small subset of other violent crime. But the point is that there's not a lot of people running around with rifles robbing liquor stores. What do most of them use? Handguns, right? But handguns also have legitimate purposes: target shooting, self-defense. Now, so do these semi-automatic rifles, but it's easier to convince people that these are evil assault rifles or whatever, like an inanimate object can be evil, whatever. Anyway, it's a play on words, essentially. It's psychological tactics to get people to support it. But the point is, at the end of the day, this is the bump stock is something that was misused in one instance. Now, like I said, it was a high-profile instance. It was an instance that involved the tragic loss of multiple lives. But it was one instance of criminal misuse of the item. Basically, the mass shooting at the concert in Nevada. Had that not happened, nobody would be talking about banning bump stocks. In fact, I'm willing to bet, I consider myself fairly knowledgeable about weapons. I had never really heard of a bump stock before this happened. And I'm willing to bet all these people that are suddenly experts and want to ban them now, they probably had never heard of them either. And when I first heard of it, I had to look it up. The difference is I paid attention to what I read when I looked it up, and what I read made it clear in the context of my existing knowledge of different things about firearms, including some of the rules and regulations, like the 1934 National Firearms Act. Contrary to what the media people and the politicians are telling you, a bump stock doesn't turn a semi-automatic into a fully automatic weapon. Okay, it just allows the gun to fire faster in semi-automatic. Right? Now, is this semantics? No. It's the law, okay? Because the laws that these government gun control people have created, we're playing by their rules here. We're obeying their laws. The gun control people have created a definition where fully automatic weapons, or weapons that are capable of multiple round bursts, firing more than one shot for each pull of the trigger, are very heavily restricted already and have been since the passage of the 1934 National Firearms Act. That defines them not by the stock, not by how fast the trigger can be pulled in semi-automatic, but by the ability to fire more than one shot for each pull of the trigger, i.e. The firing mechanism itself. So if you don't alter the firing mechanism, you're not making it fully automatic. Not only in fact, not only in reality, not only as, like, according to the actual terms that gun people would use who know about guns, but also according to the law, legally. So there's not just a physical difference, a mechanical difference, a practical difference, a scientific difference, a gun industry terminology difference. There's also a legal difference. And that legal difference was created by the gun control advocates in their existing laws. So for them to now turn around and try to pretend there's no difference, intellectual dishonesty is too mild a word for it. But what these people are saying, oh, it turns it into a fully automatic machine gun. No, it doesn't. Okay, sorry, no such thing. What it does do is allow you to fire a little faster in semi-automatic. And yes, I understand why that might make some people nervous. A lot of people are nervous about the idea of folks having guns anyways. The idea that you could, buy this add-on feature that allows the gun to fire faster. If you're already nervous about people having guns, I could see why that would make you even more nervous. Me, I don't sit up at night worrying that my neighbor might decide to kill me. Okay, that's not a big concern of mine. What do I worry about, though? Well, I don't want the government to take my stuff or anyone else's. And since I don't own any guns and I don't own a bump stock, why would this bother me? Well, what if they decide to come after other stuff, right? The issue isn't, do I own a bump stock or a gun with a bump stock or a gun of any kind, or even do I think bump stocks are cool or not? The issue is we want our government to behave in a reasonable manner, not like a bully, not like a thug, not like somebody who moves the goalpost and changes the rules once the game's in motion. And we also don't want our government to just do things and infringe on people and restrict them for no reason. And getting back to this is a product that was designed to comply with the law. This is a product that was criminally misused in one instance that we know of. And I can't think of any other consumer product that's been banned because it was misused once. I mean, think about that. Apply that standard to anything under the sun. A car that was ever involved in one accident. A person who ever overdosed on one type of prescription medication. Somebody who wasn't paying attention because they were distracted by their cell phone and stepped in front of a cement mixer, whatever. Somebody who I don't know, beat up another person with a frying pan. Have they outlawed frying pans? The whole idea of, and we're not talking, well, it's potential danger. No, the potential danger has existed as long as this type of device or anything like it existed. They've been around a lot longer than people have been talking about banning them. People have been talking about banning them because it was used in one high-profile incident. So please do me a favor, because a sound principle should be applicable across the board in any context, any similar context anyway, any similar example. So please, can somebody name me one other consumer product that was legally prohibited, outlawed, because it was misused in a single instance? I can't think of any. And in point of fact, if that standard was applied to anything else in society, basically everything would be illegal, right? So the precedent it sets essentially is that the government can outlaw anything. And that is alarming, especially since, again, this is a product that was criminally misused in one case. I understand why the idea of making a gun fire faster scares some people. But at the end of the day, if you have an unreasonable phobia of weapons or whatever, that's your problem. We should, the rest of us shouldn't be infringed on because you have a phobia. And more to the point, the arguments being made for this are basically flat out misstatements. It does not alter the firing mechanism. It doesn't make it fully automatic. All of these they're untruths. They're lies. When somebody lies on such a big scale, and when so many of the arguments for something are lies, one has to say to themselves, why is that? And one also has to say to themselves, maybe we should just flat out, since so many of the arguments being made to argue for this proposal are lies, whatever its merits or demerits, we should just not consider it, because you can't get accurate information. Everything that's reported in the news is not true about the subject. I mean, there's flat out misstatements. People saying it turns it into a fully automatic weapon. No, because that would involve altering the firing mechanism. Somebody get that guy hooked on phonics, stat. Yeah. I mean, unless the media suddenly became illiterate, you could probably figure out most of this stuff by doing a 5-minute Google search. I don't know why they don't. Maybe they're stupid. Maybe they can't read. Or maybe they just think you can't read. Maybe they think you're stupid. Yeah, I think that's it. So for a lot of reasons, the fact that it was designed to be legal and comply with existing law, that you're banning something because it was misused in one instance, which has never been done with anything else before that I can think of, at least any consumer product, that an individual can legally own. And frankly, that in itself sets the precedent that the government could basically ban anything for any reason without having to have a reason. And that is frightening. So I think we should, we don't want our government to act like a pirate ship and come and take our stuff. We don't want decisions like this to be made by people who don't even understand the subject they're proposing to regulate, or who are misrepresenting their understanding of it. And at the end of the day, if you have a problem with people misusing an item, your problem is with the people who are misusing it, not the item. The item itself is an inanimate object. All right. Again, if somebody bludgeons their neighbor to death with a frying pan, are you going to outlaw frying pans?